My name is Erella Grassiani. I work at the University of Amsterdam. I'm an anthropologist. And again, welcome to everyone who logged into this webinar organized by Academia for Equality. And this webinar was, I'm very happy to see all of you here because we organized it quite last minute. Last week, we had a conversation with some other scholars in the Netherlands in reaction to a letter that was written by all the rectors from the universities in the Netherlands. It was written in the newspaper Trouw, where they basically said, they gave a few reasons why they were against the boycott of Israeli institutions. And one important reason that came from out of that letter, but also in many and probably Dutch scholars or scholars in the Dutch academia will recognize it. One of the arguments given was that they didn't want to isolate critical Israeli scholars. As Academia for Equality, which is organized around critical scholars within Israeli academia and some outside, like myself, thought it would be very important to actually listen to those very voices, especially as they are instrumentalized by universities as the ones in the Netherlands to argue against cutting ties with Israeli institutions or against boycott, the BDS in general. So this is why we organized this session, and I'm very happy again to see so many of you here, and hopefully also people from Dutch academia who are now trying to make new frameworks around working with institutions elsewhere, but also talking about working with the Israeli institutions around kind of frameworks for being more ethical universities, perhaps, and we think it's very important for everyone who is also in these committees and is going to think and talk about new frameworks for working with institutions that might be complicit in human rights violations and war crimes, such as the case in Israel-Palestine. To listen to the very voices, critical voices of those people who are working or who have worked or studied in Israeli academia. So this is why we are here, and we organized this this session. And tonight we have three wonderful speakers that I will briefly introduce. Who all have lots of experience in Israeli academia, working in Israeli academia, but also studying there. A little bit about Academia for Equality, that was actually founded in 2015. It's very much active for the democratization of Israeli academia and society, and fights academic complicity in the oppression of Palestinian people in general, and campaigns also against sexual violence in academia, labor exploitation, and more. Here, yes, you have the in the chat is the website, so you can find more information if you didn't hear about the organization and its defense, critical voices against silencing, which is of course something that is happening in great amount at the moment in Israeli academia. So without further ado, I want to introduce, sorry, I'm just need to get my papers in order in front of me. Sorry. Yes, so our first speaker is Lamma Mansour. She is from Nazareth and received her DPhil and MPhil at the University of Oxford in the Department of Social Policy and Intervention, and a Bachelor in Psychology at the University of Haifa. Research focuses on the Palestinian society inside Israel and its relationship with the state. Lamma, the floor is yours. Yeah, Yara.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be with you all this evening. Let me share my screen. Okay, hope you all can see that. As was said, I'm Lamma Mansour. I'm from Nazareth, and my doctoral research focused on Palestinian Arab citizens of Israel who are students in Israeli higher education, and their relationship with higher education and universities. But today, I will be speaking about Israeli academia after and in light of October 7th. And yeah, so I will be tackling kind of the aspect of academics, while my fellow panel members will talk about different aspects of this topic. While I will be focusing on Israeli academia in my presentation, I want to take a moment to draw our attention to Gaza, where Palestinians are still being displaced, starved, and bombed. In terms of education, the last 7 months have had a devastating impact. All 12 universities in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed by Israeli airstrikes or bombs. Over 75% of school buildings have been damaged. At least 94 professors were killed, among them 3 university presidents. And thousands of students have been killed and injured. So just to keep that in mind, everything I will speak about afterwards is in this context of destruction and annihilation. So in order to talk about Israeli academia, I think it's imperative that we place it in the context of the general atmosphere in Israel since October 7th. Academia is not in a vacuum. It is in the general Israeli society and is impacted by it, and it impacts what happens in it, but it is also impacted by it. There's been an atmosphere of silencing and intimidation of critical voices, especially of Palestinian voices inside Israel. There have been arrests of people who have been critical of Israel's conduct in Gaza, arrests over people expressing sympathy with the people of Gaza, dismissals from jobs, and summoning to hearings over social media posts. This is not a new practice, but it has been extremely accelerated over the past 8 to 9 months of war. And Yara will be speaking about the student side of this, what's been happening in universities. Human rights organizations such as Adala have documented over 90 dismissals or suspensions of people's labor, of people's employment in various sectors. This includes retail, hospitals, high tech, various private companies, and so on. One example is the example of Dr. Abed Samara, who was removed from Hasharon Hospital from his position as the head of the cardiac intensive care unit. And that was based on a profile picture from 2022, which he had the Islamic flag, which to the untrained eye, which to people who don't know, is similar in some ways to the Hamas flag. It's also green. So this was confused with the Hamas flag, and he was dismissed from his position at the hospital. There have also been restrictions on the ability to protest, especially for Palestinian citizens of Israel. Really early on, Israeli police chief in October 18th said, whoever wants to be a citizen of Israel, ahlan wa sahlan, meaning welcome. Whoever wants to identify with Gaza is welcome. I'll put them on buses that will send them there. I'll help them get there. So very early on in the war, it was apparent the boundaries of what is appropriate to say and what is not appropriate, what is okay to say and what's not okay to say, what will be punished and what won't be punished. There were a few attempts in Haifa and in Al-Fahim to organize protests against the war in Gaza, and those were very heavily cracked down on. They were not given licenses, and people were arrested and dealt with extreme brutality from the side of the police. Moreover, there's been legislation that has been advancing in the Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, to widen the definition of incitement to terror. This includes abolishing what's called the probability test, which means it would no longer be necessary to establish that the words that are in question, that they have a real possibility of leading to acts in the real world. Or, for example, another legislation that is being pushed is, for example, that liking a post is enough to be incitement to terror, and so on and so forth. These are various bills. This is not just one bill, and they are in various stages of being entered into legislation. But they are being advanced and pushed by politicians in Israel. Now, when it comes to academia and academics, faculty members, we have also seen an atmosphere of silencing and intimidation, and this has been largely driven by right-wing groups such as Im Tertzu, B'Tselmo. These are groups that keep blacklists of critical Israeli scholars. They pressure institutions to take actions against certain individuals and scholars. They, based on things they have said or events that they have participated in, they encourage students to tell on one another, to tell on their classmates, to tell on their lecturers. And this, again, these are practices that have been, that we have seen for a long time, but they have been accelerated in the past 8 or 9 months of war. So we have seen disciplinary actions being taken against faculty members who are critical of the war, and this includes suspensions, dismissals, and worsening of working conditions. One example of this is Professor Nurit Al-Khanan, and she was over a message that she wrote in a WhatsApp group where she paraphrased Jean Paul Sartre's words, and she was summoned by her college to a hearing, and the hearing concluded with the college reprimanding her for expressing solidarity with Israel's enemies. The case of Professor Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian has also received a lot of media attention and has been spoken about a lot. And I encourage you to read the resources that I have on the presentation. They all provide a lot of details around each of these cases. But what happened is that in October, Professor Shalhoub-Kevorkian signed a petition stating that Israel is committing war crimes and genocide in Gaza. Since she has tenure and university management cannot fire her, they decided to write her a public letter saying that they are ashamed that she is a faculty member, that they recommend that she resign. She decided to stay. And then in March, she was interviewed for Maqdisi Street podcast. A clip of the interview was cut, taken out of context, again, by a right-wing group who demanded that the university dismiss her. She was suspended from teaching by the university, and they made a big statement about this and wrote a very, let's say, strongly worded letter. Later on in April, she was arrested by the police, taken from her home, charging her with incitement against the state of Israel and statements against Zionism. She was interrogated for hours, kept in detention overnight in horrific conditions, subject to abuse by the police officers. And then she was released the next day after a court hearing where the police asked to extend her arrest, but the court did not allow it. And then she was summoned again at least 3 more times to the police for more investigations, and the case is still ongoing. So although these cases are, and there are more cases of this, and you can see more in the Academia for Equality report, but as I will be speaking later on, that these cases have a chilling effect. Although it's one person, but they are made to be a scapegoat and, you know, for everyone to learn their lesson from what is happening to other critical scholars. There was also a student union incitement campaign against critical scholars, Nadia Shahub-Kevorkian and Dr. Anat Matar. And they are pushing for more legislation to that is specific to universities to require the dismissal of critical scholars. That legislation would require the dismissal of scholars who express views, and this is from Klein and Sternfeld's article in Forward, who express or act in manners that include the denial of existence of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, incitement to racism, violence, or terrorism, and or support of an armed struggle or an act of terrorism against Israel. And again, couple this with the widening of the definition of what incitement to terror is, and this becomes a very toxic potion. On the other side, there were also almost no sanctions that I know of, at least. There's been one sanction of a student, not of an academic, who express racist sentiments against Palestinians. And here we can talk about the case of Professor Aviv from Ben-Gurion University, who wrote an article saying, talking about the role of Arab society in the rise of Hamas, saying that Palestinian Arab society in Israel praises death and glorifies death. That has gone unsanctioned. There's also a letter by a group called Physicians for the Rights of IDF Soldiers, and they write about, there are about 100 physicians, doctors, and some of them are connected to universities, and they call for the destruction of hospitals in Gaza. And Physicians for Human Rights have made a statement about this that I also encourage that you read. Another aspect of this is the failure to protect activities that are critical of the war. So on campus, there hasn't been many activities, and actually this has been restricted by universities and colleges, by higher education institutions. But when they do happen, there's often a lack of proper safety for those who are attending. For example, there was a seminar last week with Professor Omer Bartov at the Ben-Gurion University, where again, a right-wing group of students were yelling from outside the auditorium, causing a lot of noise and yeah, just trying to disrupt the event. And this went almost unchallenged by the security. And you can read more about this incident. As I said, this has a chilling effect on freedom of expression in Israel. We don't have statistics yet for academics. I know there is research being done with faculty members by Dr. Maha Karkabi. She's conducting research on this, but the Arab Student Movements Union conducted a survey with 809, if I'm not mistaken, students in December, and the findings are really striking. 97% felt that their academic institutions were hostile environments to them. And from my own research, I know that this is a big jump. Usually you'll find maybe 50%, 60%. This is a huge jump. And 87% felt that their activities are monitored, mainly online. So there's a chilling effect on freedom of expression in Israel. And there's a lot of self-censorship. And we can see this One sign of this is the decline in social media use among Palestinian citizens of Israel, and this has been documented in the research by Dr. Ham Abu Kishk, who speaks about this decline in social media use. There's a lot more to be said about the topic, but I want to leave more time for questions and for my other panelists. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lamma. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll continue to our next speaker, which is Outi Bat El. She's a professor emerita in linguistics from the Tel Aviv University, and she will be speaking about the complicity of Israeli academia, especially with the military. Outi.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm a linguist, so my research is not too related to what I'm going to say today. It's going to be more personal and about my surrounding. So I would like to address two issues. First of all, your thoughts and my thoughts regarding BDS and the collaboration of the Israel academic institutions with IDF, which is one of the many factors, in addition to what Lamma just said and Yara would say later, that need to be taken into consideration when thinking about BDS. So first of all, I want to say, as Erella said at the beginning, that the rectors of the Dutch universities are opposed to BDS because they worry about critical Israeli scholars. So we, the members of Academia of Equality, are the critical scholars, and we really appreciate your concern. I would like to share with you my thoughts about BDS. It's my thoughts. The Israeli government is responsible for the atrocities in Gaza. Israel is declared as a Jewish state, although more than 20% of its citizens are not Jewish. I'm an Israeli Jew, and therefore the atrocities in Gaza are done in my name. As Lamma said, all universities in Gaza are destroyed. Many academics were killed. So the price I personally pay by being boycotted by you is minute. So don't worry about me, yeah? For disclosure, I'm a full professor and the boycott does not affect my career. But there are many critical academics at the beginning of their career here and elsewhere, here in our panel and elsewhere, whose morals overweigh their own academic success. You may say that BDS does not affect the Israeli government's decisions. And if it does, it is counterproductive. We will show them this tends to be the Israeli government attitude. I don't have a reliable information regarding the effect of BDS on the Israeli government. And you may say that if the effect is questionable, it is better to refrain from boycotting and harming individuals. This is a legitimate view. But let me tell you something personal. I personally boycott products from the occupied territories. And I don't know if it affects businesses there, and if it does, it also actually harms the Palestinians who work for the Jews there. Moreover, it affects me. I stand in a shop, read the labels at the back of the jar or whatever for the origin of the product, and then look at the map to see where this place is. And if I'm in a shop and this shop sells only olive oils from the occupied territories, I have to go to another shop. But this is nothing. It is like the recent event in Greece where port workers blocked the docking of a ship that carried guns to Israel. Eventually, the ship went via Italy and the weapons arrived safely to Israel. But the port workers, as they say, they didn't want to give hand to killing innocent people. This is how I feel. This is the little they can do, people in Greece. Whether or not to support it, BDS is not an easy decision to make. Too many factors are involved, one of which is the collaboration of the academia with IDF. And I tell you now, things from my surrounding, not my research. I'm a linguist, it's not just what you see. First of all, about IDF. IDF, the Israeli military, is central in Israeli society. It is integral part of our life and culture. I served in the army, my daughter served in the army, and I have friends who don't sleep at night now because their children are serving in the army, whether they want it or not. IDF service is mandatory unless you are religious. Being so dominant in the society and receiving a great deal of the country's budget, not only in wartime, the Israeli academic institutions collaborate with IDF in many different ways. Some may be favorable, I don't know, but others are destructive. IDF is an acronym for Israel Defense Minister, emphasis on defense. However, now more than ever, IDF has failed to do in his mission. It did not defend us on October 7th, the Jews around Gaza, when innocent people were kidnapped and killed by Hamas. And it does not defend the Palestinians in the West Bank who are harassed, tortured, and killed by the Jewish settlers. Actually, not only by the Jewish settlers. It was reported recently that since the beginning of the war, 126 children, and this is children, were killed in the West Bank by Jewish settlers and IDF soldiers. Now more than ever, IDF is IAF, where A stands for attack and assault. Now more than ever, we cannot ignore it, and the Israeli academia cannot ignore what the Israeli army is doing in Gaza. I would then expect that the Israeli academic institutions to withdraw their collaboration with IDF, but they don't, even though some collaborations could make them complicit in death of innocent people. Some academic institutions have special programs for elite students, elite soldiers selected to be in high positions in the army. One can say that this is a good program since it gives the young soldiers a head start, preparing them for the future. Don't forget that these soldiers are, as a Jewish person, our children and grandchildren and neighbors, our friends, we care about them. However, imagine 80 or so people hanging around campus in army uniforms and guns. Think about the Palestinian students on campus, many of whom have families in Gaza, many of whom have lost relatives in Gaza, and by lost, I mean killed. by Israeli soldiers in uniforms and guns. So think about this situation, and these students in uniforms and guns, they go in groups. The Hebrew University has several such programs, and next year, Tel Aviv University is launching such a program. We tried to block it, but we failed. Too much money is involved here. I would also like to mention several centers. The Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv University, and a similar one, the International Institute for Counterterrorism in Reichman University, and there are other institutes all over the campuses. First of all, like quite a few senior researchers in the institute, the executive director doesn't hold a PhD as you would expect from an academic institute. He's a reserve IDF officer, and so are many of the senior researchers in the institute. Here's a description of what appears online. The Institute for National Security Studies launches and engages research that shapes the public discourse of issues on Israel national security agenda, namely IDF officers shape the public view and provides policy analysis and recommendations for decision makers. Similarly, the description of ICT in Reichman University is as follows. The International Institute for Counterterrorism, this is on campus, yeah, is an independent think tank providing expertise in terrorism, counterterrorism, homeland security, threat, like risk assessment, and et cetera, et cetera. It is on campus. There are IDF centers in an academic disguise. Since they are hosted by the academic institutions, they carry the logos and the institutions want them. They bring a lot of money. The results of this involvement could be fruitful. I don't know. I accept the money they bring to the university, and then you have students that you can support students. But it also makes the academic institutions complicit in the death of innocent people. For example, actually at the beginning of the war, a team of 4 scholars, 2 from the Hebrew University, 1 from Bar-Ilan University, and 1 from Tel Aviv University, submitted to the government a plan for the day after. The plan is concerning the reconstruction of Gaza, which on the face of it seems to be reassuring. However, they recommended that we cannot start reconstructing Gaza without a total defeat of Hamas. You know what it means. You see it now. Gaza is destroyed, and so many innocent people are dead. Hamas is not destroyed. This is the idea of the academics. The Israeli academia is under the Education Ministry, which hosts a program called Team in Uniform. This program trains IDF officers upon their retirement for jobs in, you won't guess, in the education system, in elementary schools, high school. 3 education colleges are involved in this program, providing 2 years training for the participants of the program. Now, imagine taking army officers and training them as a group to be educators means that the indoctrination towards militaristic values starts very early in elementary school, in high school, and the academia, which together with IDF hosts this program, contributes to this indoctrination. So let me end with a personal comment. The Israeli academia has been my home for more than 34 years. I care about it, and at the same time, I mourn it. Its moral decline is hurting. We, the members of Academia for Equality, are doing everything we can to bring it back to its moral path. But in some form or other, we need your help, your university's help, your country's help. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Outi. Like Lamma, very insightful and also very much on time, which is good if you want to make use of our time. So our final speaker is Yara, Shahine-Gharable, and she's a history MA student at Tel Aviv University, also known as Al-Sheikh Mouanis, the place where the university is built. And she's furthermore also an activist from Jaffa. Yara, floor is yours.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for organizing it. And it was a pleasure to listen to Lamma and Outi. So I have attached also in the Zoom chat here some documents that include the report that we produced amid the genocidal war, which is updated until November, but we're currently working on another one, so I do recommend you to follow up. I will discuss the context in which the hotline, we'll talk about it briefly, was first established. Then I will discuss a few cases of political persecution of Palestinian students at Israeli universities and colleges. And finally, I will pose some questions on and about Israeli policy in general and within the academia in Israel. So Academia for Equality has maintained a hotline since the events of May 2021. It is also known as the 2021 Israeli-Palestinian crisis, or Operation Garden of Walls. We tend to call it as a Palestinian Habit Ayar, which means the uprising of dignity. And it was a kind of operation, a war. The Palestinian within Israel also, we had an uprising inside. So for us, it's more than just operation or riots in the way Israeli like to frame things. So alongside this, or if talking about this context, we provide the hotline in which we wanted to provide an answer and accompany the students who face hardship related to the political context, alongside the rise of the power of extreme right wings. And since then, we can see a concrete fear of increased political persecution of activist students, but not only, in the face of the ongoing war, genocidal war, and de facto ethnic McCarthyism from October 7th. Hundreds of students of all the universities of higher education were and still are exposed to harassment and political persecution by members, right wings, but not solely, inside the institution and out, expressed by suspensions or disciplinary summons, just like my friend Lamma and Outi mentioned before. So since the genocidal war broke out, disciplinary procedures have been opened against over 120 students, most of them Palestinians. These were and are subjected to process of hearing, inquiry, disciplinary committees, and even suspensions from their universities and colleges. Academia for Equality has been collecting and reviewing all the references to summons and disciplinary actions. As mentioned, there are over 120 students who have been either suspended until disciplinary action is taken or summoned to a disciplinary procedures. These are present in all institutions, but we can safely generalize and state that political persecution and such summons take place mainly in the various colleges. We have a few cases at the universities. I will give some numerical and statistics. Haifa University has 7 suspended students. The rest have been summoned for disciplinary action. Tel Aviv University has 5 students summoned for disciplinary action. Ben Gurion University has 4 students summoned, and the Technion 5. It should be noted that there are only 5 outstanding cases of students who received a letter informing them they are suspended or distanced from the studies de facto and or are dismissed from their studies. Specifically, these letters arrived from the Rishon LeZion College of Administration, according to attorney at Adala Center, the legal center of the Arab minority in Israel. And the Palestinian citizens of Israel are basically arrested, summoned to disciplinary actions, or suspended, as I said, from studies for publicizing almost anything. This is an unprecedented situation of incitement and suppression of all freedom of expression and solidarity forms. During the first month of war, and until now, actually, the organization has dedicated its effort to administrating and current work for the hotline. We have a team answering calls, maintaining the hotline by phone, WhatsApp group, and WhatsApp response for those interested only in writing, both in Hebrew and Arabic. We have collaborated with a wide range of organizations and documented this application and followed them up and followed the progress. And basically, the rationale behind the hotline is to provide an answer and deliver maybe a robust network in the absence of such one to students who face hardship related to the political context. It's the basic idea of for targeting the students, and we are trying to help them not to be supported and not isolated as the policies in Israel and even the universities are trying to push through. Now I will be delivering some study cases just to understand the mindset or perhaps just the set. One of the recurring examples for political persecution was liking on social media any photo post that is related to the Palestinian struggle or cause. This was the most basic level of political persecution on the part of their colleagues in the class who were not necessarily associated or connected anymore solely with the right-wing parties. A more extreme case where all kinds of screenshots of students were found from their own inside dorms with the Palestinian flag appearing from the little corner of the window. This means invading what we assume is supposed to be private space. Another case shows that it is enough to post a post on social media networks that includes the word Gaza along with an emoji that expresses pain, sympathy, and sadness. This is considered a terrorist act, thereby normalizing terrorism and sympathy for terrorists and even an act of inciting. This political persecution in general and in Israeli academia do not operate in a vacuum, but it is important to insist on the rationale behind them. And I have some questions. The first one is, it shows that freedom of expression is a fiction. And if so, it depends very much which group, on which social and ethnic group talks about expression and what do we express in the media, but not only. The second is that it is forbidden to express an opinion that is not dictated and adjusted opinion. The accepted views are the dominant views. Either you are with us or with them, and you are against us or you are in favor of Israel. And it means you're in favor of soldiers, pro-military operation in the strip, or you are a real terrorist. Of course, this view is not only problematic, but it ignores families' ties, context, and not just the historical and political ones. Those who are hurt and sad because of the attack on Gaza have family. I myself, I can say that I have my paternal family is in Gaza currently right now. After all, the relationship is a blood tie and not only a national aspiration and political vision. The third one, which is, in my opinion, perhaps the most important question and point, for us, like in our discussion, as a researchers, people in academia, academics who deal with the science and spirit and humanities and society, we are the ones that scare Israel at the end of the day. The strong desire and the need to bring us out as a researcher who challenge Israel's draconian and evil policies is considered to be criminal. We saw the case with the Professor Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian, how it is easy in our context to criminalize someone just because we are challenging the status quo. And not just, and we're not only criminal, we're criminal de facto, not only in potential. The convention of investigation and the need to bring us out as a criminals, and all the more so when we are students and politically active in students' movement, and we dare to identify injustice and say it is injustice. And here I want to say some personal note as an activist, but also as someone who is a master's student and active in the studential movements at Tel Aviv University, Sheikh Mohannes. The students' movement are a real threat because we are the catalyst that drives radical and real change. And the Academia for Equality here plays another role in which we are trying to deliver and provide a robust for those movements that has no, frame or any secure and a network or address to go and talk with and for. So I think I will conclude here, but I have attached as well the few references that I was mainly using. The report, as I said, is not that, it was only current until November, but we're working on another one. But I want to just finish with these questions out loud because it's not even about freedom of expression or not. It's how Israel and its policies are taking the students and the Palestinian students and targeting students because they are affiliated or associated with, at the end of the day, we're asking only for dignity, and we're not even, we are in a place that we are not even can talk or express our grief, our mourn about our people. It's not about, I always tend to say this idea of it's not about the imagined communities as Benedict Anderson talked about. We have family there, and it's insane that we are in a reality in which we cannot even express the injustice and that is ongoing. And I call it a genocidal war, not war or operation and so on. So thank you for listening, and I think I will be finishing here.
Thank you very much, Yara. Thank you for being so brave.